Welcome to today's Annie's Conversations. This is a program put on by Annie's Project, and today we're going to be having a National Agricultural Policy update. It's exactly 1 year from our last update, so plenty has happened, and we're excited to get to that topic. But before we do, we'd like to thank Farm Credit for their support of this program and their ongoing support of Annie's Project and the work that we do. I'm Doris Mold, CEO of Annie's Project, and just wanted to give you a little bit of an update of some important things that are going on. First of all, 2026 is the International Year of the Woman Farmer, and Annie's Project, along with other organizations throughout the United States and the world, is focusing on the Year of the Woman Farmer, and some of the different things that we're doing include features of women farmers that are involved with Annie's Project. And here you'll see Andrea, who is part of our Annie's Project Advisory Council and is also a fiber farmer. Other things that we're doing, really go across a great range of things that we do in Annie's Project, and we're trying to highlight the role that women producers and agriculturalists fill in agriculture. Annie's has had a long history of supporting women producers, and we're proud to be part of these International Year of the Woman Farmer programs. A program that's coming up is Improving Lives Through Annie's Project, the Long-Term Impact. Iowa State did a long-term study of their Annie's Project work, and we're pleased that we're going to be featuring Madeline Schultz from Iowa State next week. Other programs that are taking place include the International Year of the Woman Farmer ACE Summit in Washington, D.C. Annie's Project will be there and presenting. Annie's Project is also hosting an International Year of the Woman Farmer virtual conference in December as kind of a closeout of the year. We also have monthly farmer features, like you saw the one with Andrea. We try to feature a farmer each month. And then we also have Rooted and Ready podcasts. As part of our Rooted and Ready series, we are including some features on International Year of the Woman Farmer, along with many other topics. Those podcasts drop every Thursday. And then we're doing International Year of the Woman Farmer webinars, and we've done one each month, January through April, and then we'll pick up that series again starting in September. So many more things to come. Please check out our social media. And then if you'd like to find out more about Annie's Project, please check out anniesproject.org, or you can scan the QR code on this slide and it will take you to our website. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jenny Mesirow, Executive Vice President for Government Affairs from the Farm Credit Council. Jenny, welcome. Exactly 1 year from the time that you were with us. And I know that you have several different updates, and we're so pleased to have you with us here again today. So everyone, please welcome Jenny Mesirow.
Thank you so much, Doris, for that wonderful introduction. So nice to be with all of you this morning, this afternoon, particularly in the International Year of the Woman Farmer. I was excited to hear that I did this exactly 1 year ago, and I'm even more excited to tell you very different information than what I got to tell you a full year ago. So I'm going to pull up my slides here and share. Are we all good, Doris? Okay.
We are good.
Okay, so what I thought would be the most informative for this dialogue is to walk you through what's happening in Washington right now. So very exciting time in ag policy, finally. It's only taken us almost 4 years to get here in a 5-year farm bill, but here we are. We are moving forward with the process. talk to you a little bit about what's going on, talk to you a little bit about some of the opportunities that I think agriculture needs to be taking advantage of, particularly women in agriculture need to be taking advantage of. And then I really want to reserve as much time as possible to answer your questions, because I think you all have topics that I'm sure you want to cover. I'm happy to unpack additional information that's not that within this presentation, or things that you want to talk about that maybe I haven't covered. So I'll do my best to answer all of your questions, but I really want to make sure we're having a full dialogue here so that you're getting the information that you need for your businesses and your, the groups that you're in. So jumping right in here, what I think was really a pivotal moment was in this Farm Bill process. So the Super Bowl of agriculture policy is the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill happens every 5 years. Typically, it includes all of the commodity programs, all of the commodity support programs, so ARC and PLC, all of the crop insurance programs, both for row crops and specialty crops, so think whole farm crop insurance as well, nutrition programs, research, conservation, credit, 12 different titles of lots of policies that need to be updated and reestablished every 5 years. Well, the most recent Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill, expired in 2023. And since then, we have been operating under what is called an extension. So Congress at the end of the year, so every year since 2023, when they did not pass a Farm Bill, they passed an extension, and that reauthorized existing policy for another year. Uniquely to this particular Farm Bill cycle, and this is my 5th Farm Bill, and this process has never been done this way before, but we are where we are. The Agriculture Committee worked with the rest of the House committees on a process called the reconciliation process. And reconciliation gives a Congress and a White House the opportunity to pass legislation strictly on a party line. So because the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, they had the opportunity to use reconciliation. All administrations that have that opportunity utilize it. The Biden administration utilized it, past administrations. It's not a new tool, and it is a tool that many have used to get their #1 priorities passed. So the #1 priority for the Trump administration was the tax reform package and making those 2017 tax reforms and tax cuts permanent, as well as improving upon some of them. There were a lot of good things in the One Big Beautiful Bill, HR 1, the Tax Cuts for Working Families Act, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same piece of legislation. But there was some really good tax policy for agriculture included in that package. In addition, they pulled out some of the big chunks of the Farm Bill, and it included it in that bill as well. And those were the chunks that either spent money or saved money. Depending on your outlook on the world and your outlook on federal government policies, it's sort of a mixed bag of what happened. But for agriculture at least, there was important reforms and upgrades and price resetting within the Title I program, so ARC and PLC, et cetera, and the other reference price programs. There was great updates in crop insurance, but there was also some significant cuts within the nutrition programs in order to pay for that. So with those two, with the big spending items pulled out of the Farm Bill and now passed, and they're in law as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, they have all the pieces of the Farm Bill that are now left. And a lot of folks can sometimes say, oh, the Farm Bill is done because they did it in reconciliation or they did it in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And that's really not the case. There are lots of really important policy items within the rest of the Farm Bill that do need to be dealt with and cleaned up and modernized and updated. And brought into the, out of 2018 and into 2026 now. So we've been working really, really hard over the course of the past 4 years at Farm Credit to advance the Farm Bill process. And we have had some fits and starts. So there was a Farm Bill that was passed out of a more comprehensive version that was passed out of the House Ag Committee in 2024. And then really over the course of 2025 and even into the beginning of this year, it was difficult to see how exactly they were going to be moving forward with the rest of what would typically be in the bill, because the big items that get people excited weren't there. That said, I think the House Ag Committee did pretty impressive work. They pulled together hundreds of bipartisan bills, tweaked them a bit, but some of them made it in exactly as they were. All nothing that cost any money is included. So things, no spending increases or spending authorization increases are included. So this is a budget neutral bill. So everything that they could do within a budget neutral space is pretty much in there. And most of them are derived from bipartisan bills that were included, that were introduced over the past several years. I think what really lit the fire and has gotten this process going is that the president, who very rarely over the past many years has talked about the Farm Bill, put out a Truth Social post saying Congress passed the Farm Bill now. And all of a sudden you have seen a significant amount of momentum, because I think that signaled to at least House leadership, oh, this is something that the administration is now going to support. That will help us get votes on the, both within the committee, but also more importantly on the House floor. We're going to leverage this opportunity. At the same time, the agriculture committee, the community really energized as well to take advantage of the fact that the president was now paying attention to the Farm Bill. And we've been communicating a bunch about it too. So part of what was the impetus for the president's tweet or Truth Social post was the fact that they were able to get a product through the House Ag Committee. It was a very lengthy couple of days, but like I said, it includes a lot of bipartisan wins, and it ended up being a bipartisan bill that was produced out of the committee. So it got 7 Democrats in support, which is more than the support that the bill received from a Democratic perspective in 2024. So they've made some progress. Again, it's really important items that are included, but some of the traditional things within a farm bill that people typically talk about that make all the noise are not in this legislation. But I think it's still really important that we as a community continue to push for it, because if there is not a farm bill, then there is not another vehicle for agriculture legislation currently that is as obvious as what the Farm Bill has been for the past more than 30 years almost. So if this Farm Bill cannot get done, and we're either in an additional extension or it just sort of dies on the vine and goes away, then we're, as a community, in a situation where we've got to figure out, well, what does the future of agriculture legislation, the process of that look like? What is the work of the Agriculture Committee? Are we now trying to get every single part of the Farm Bill passed as an individual piece of legislation? Because that's hundreds of pieces of legislation that have to move through the House Ag Committee, move through the Senate Ag Committee, move through the entire legislative process to then be enacted into law, because there's no Farm Bill vehicle to include everything in and then move it forward. So just something like little food for thought as we're having more of this conversation. So the committee passed what, Farm Credit is very excited about the provisions that were included in the credit title. There's a lot of really good modernizations in there, things that modernize how FSA looks at various farm structures, helps producers go from 3 years of experience to 2 years of experience to qualify for FSA lending, increases the caps of FSA lending, both guaranteed and direct lending programs, to make it align with the true cost of starting a farm these days. So again, a lot of great things in the credit title, a lot of good items in the rest of the bill as well that we can talk through. But we're at Farm Credit, obviously we pay the most attention to the credit title, so we're very excited about what was included. But we're at the very beginning, and while it's very exciting, we're at the very beginning of the process. So the House Ag Committee has considered the bill, reported it out, and now it starts through this process that I've outlined here with the arrows. And the House leadership has announced that they are going to consider it on the House floor next week. So myself, the rest of the ag community, the agriculture committee staff, everybody is hyper focused on trying to figure out, do they have the votes to get it out of the Rules Committee? The Rules Committee is the committee of members of Congress that decide they put the rules around the debate on the House floor. So it's how many amendments, what amendments potentially, if amendments can be offered from the floor, just like how the rules of debate will be organized. Once the Rules Committee passes the rule for debate, then they have to pass the rule on the House floor and then pass the actual bill on the House floor with potential changes from amendments. The Senate Ag Committee needs to do the same thing that the House Ag Committee does. They need to produce a product and then pass that out of the committee. Then it needs to go to the Senate floor for consideration. Once that is done, there will be most likely two different versions of the bill. Those versions of the bill go through what is called a conference process. So the House and the Senate appoint members to sit down in a room together and hash out the differences of the bill. Then it goes back to the House and back to the Senate for that new version to be voted on. And then finally, once the House and the Senate have passed the exact same version, it goes to the president for signature. We're almost in May. The House and Senate will be out of session for all of August. And since it's an election year, also the entire month of October. So there is not a ton of time to get this done. The vote next week will be a huge indicator as to whether or not this farm bill has legs to keep on running. If there is a strong vote and a strong bipartisan vote, and when I say a strong bipartisan vote, I don't mean 75 to 100 Democrats. I'm saying if they can get 25 Democrats on this bill, that's a real win, and that provides real momentum. And I think there are probably 25 Democrats that have enough in there to support the overall legislation. But no one's announcing that publicly, so to be seen. That will signal to the Senate that they should probably start working on something. And they have draft language that they've been tweaking, but they are not having those bipartisan conversations that typically occur to get something like this moving. So all that to say, long way to go in this process, but we have more momentum now than we've ever had before. I'm going to stop for one quick second and just check the chat to make sure, because I want to answer your questions in real time.
So we did get a question, just so Jenny, you keep mentioning a number of Democrats needed. What about Republicans?
So in order for any legislation to pass the House of Representatives now, you need 218. They will lose some Republicans. There are some Republicans, and we can talk more about this in a minute as to what their issues are with the legislation. But there are Republicans that will not be able to support this farm bill, and there are Republicans that have never supported a farm bill. So when I say a bipartisan vote and those like 24 to 25 Democrats, those 24 to 25 Democrats are needed to replace Republicans that are most likely a no vote. I don't know how many there will be. I know they're trying to keep it to a minimum. They have negotiated several of like the really difficult members of Congress on issues, typically on issues like this, like a Representative Massey from Kentucky. They have, he has committed to vote it at least out of the Rules Committee, so to keep the process going. And therefore, he may be in a position to support it once it makes it to the House floor. But there is a very intense what they call a whip operation or a vote counting operation going on to understand who's a no, who's a yes, and how many Democrats they need to get to 218. Right now, the Republicans have a little bit of flexibility because there are two Democrats in the past just couple of days who are no longer members of the body. So you have a representative from Florida who's a Democrat who resigned because of some ethics issues. And then very sadly, yesterday, we lost Representative and former House Ag Committee Chairman David Scott, who passed away at the age of 80 yesterday. So they're down two Democrats, and they're down probably two no votes. So that gives the Republicans a little bit more breathing room, but not a ton. So moving to the next slide. In addition to all of these steps, these little green amendment boxes show you all the opportunities for folks to offer amendments that must be voted on that have the ability to change the underlying legislation. And there are some folks who are looking at amendments that many of us in the ag community would be very concerned about. Some of them will deal with nutrition and other items like that, and could change the vote count if they are adopted. But some of them will be like, potentially altering specialty crop insurance in ways that save money, but would very much limit people's abilities to take advantage of specialty crop insurance. Putting additional income limitations on people's ability to receive crop insurance. So there's a real mix of amendments, and depending which amendments are defeated and which amendments are adopted, that can have an impact on the mix of members of Congress that feel like they can support the legislation at the end of the day. So there's a lot of change, assuming this bill continues to go through the process. There's a lot of additional changes that can be made potentially. There's also a lot of inflection points where folks in like farm credit and organizations like Annie's Projects need to pay attention to ensure that those harmful amendments are not adopted, that members of Congress are educated about the impacts of amendments, and that we can protect the good things in the bill and not have them altered in ways that make them unsuccessful or unusable for producers. So that's a piece that we'll be watching really, really closely. The amendments, if you're interested, you can go to the House Rules Committee at house.com, and the amendment deadline was yesterday at noon. So you can read all of the amendments for yourselves if you're interested, and they really run the gamut. So the Rules Committee is going to have a very difficult job trying to figure out which amendments need to be made in order and provided the vote on the floor, and which amendments they can do away with and which amendments just would upend the whole process. So more drama to come. I did want to highlight a couple of things that are very much in the conversation. So as we talk about amendments, there are several fairly controversial items that are still floating around. So like I said, crop insurance amendments will be controversial. That'll be something that they'll have to deal with on the House floor. SNAP amendments will also be controversial and will need to be dealt with on the House floor. Democrats will want to fix the cuts that were included in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and Republicans will probably potentially offer items that would further cut SNAP. So that will be a little bit of a political football, unfortunately. The other two items, so Prop 12 is a ballot initiative that came out of the state of California that was passed, where they have changed the kind of the rules of the road when it comes to animal confinement. So many states have rules, regulations, laws around animal confinement. And those rules are based on how an animal is raised in that state. Prop 12 in California says not only do those rules and regulations apply to animals produced in the state of California, it also applies to animals or processed animals that are being sold into the state of California, which is a bit disruptive to the interstate commerce laws, because now different companies in different states have to figure out how do they sell into the state of California. So there is a Prop 12 interstate commerce piece that was included in the current Farm Bill product, that folks are going to have to work through the controversies around. There's also, similarly, there have been states that have been passing their own pesticide legislation. The pesticide legislation varies from state to state, and there's some concern that having all of these different regulations makes it very difficult for farmers and companies to navigate. There's also a push for E15, so year-round blending of ethanol, 15% ethanol in fuel, that has become very controversial. But there's a handful of particularly I-state members of Congress who are very, very supportive of including E15 in the bill. E15 is not currently included in the bill, and there continues to be some dialogue between corn growers and small independent refiners, and how to thread the needle and find compromise there. So these are just some of the items that will most likely come up in the amendment process, and that have the potential to either get more support for the legislation or completely tank the legislation. So just a handful of the many items that we could see over the next weeks and months as this hopefully continues to move through the process. Aside from the Farm Bill, I know many of you are interested in any sort of additional ag economic assistance that may be eligible in that may be coming to help producers who are dealing with, continuing to increase input costs, whether it's fertilizer because of the conflict in Iran, or other types of inputs that have been fuel prices that have been increasing as well. There's, the markets have been disrupted, obviously, and then we're in full-blown just general weather disaster season, whether it be hurricanes or wildfires or floods that also impact. So there's just a lot of what I've been calling kind of the perfect storm of challenges for agriculture producers right now. And is there the possibility that Congress could provide additional funding beyond the $10–11 billion that the administration put out in the beginning of the year? And I know some of those payments have hit, some of those payments have not hit, but is there an opportunity to get some more funding out the door? Now, some of the most dire situations in the agriculture economy are in Arkansas, as well as in North Dakota and other like sugar beet producing states. So you have the chairman of the Senate Ag Committee, and Mr. Bozeman, very interested in getting ag economic assistance done. On the House side, it's a little bit more complicated of a story. The House is not as sold on putting out additional money for agriculture, because they want to see how the increased reference prices and the increased ARC and PLC and the strengthening of crop insurance, how all of that plays out when it gets paid out starting in October of this year. And they also want to see like the impacts of some of the tax reforms. They don't want to spend an additional, some folks are talking upwards of $65 billion in direct payments to producers. They don't believe that that's a fiscally responsible thing to do. So a little bit different perspective from the House and the Senate. I think the House is very focused on, let's get this farm bill done, let's clean up the policy, let's create that 5-year certainty, and then we can talk about additional agriculture economic assistance, or now they're calling it market assistance. So it's kind of depending on where your perspective is. But we're watching it, we're paying attention to it, and I know many of you are as well, so happy to answer questions on that front. And then I wanted to hit on a couple of things that are changing that I think we all need to be paying attention to. So next year, the Ag Committee leadership will look very, very different. Chairman Bozeman probably isn't going anywhere. We'll see if he's the chairman or the ranking member. Ranking member Amy Klobuchar is running for governor in the state of Minnesota. Chairman Thompson, based on the Republican conference rules, he is term limited as a chairman or a ranking member. So he can seek a waiver, but there are other members that have been waiting in line for a very long time and would like to see Mr. Thompson's 6 years end so that they can then assume a gavel position. And then ranking member Angie Craig is running for a Senate seat in the state of Minnesota, and will therefore no longer be a House member and will no longer be eligible to be a ranking member. So we can talk through who is kind of in line for all of these positions, but for the agriculture community in general, getting prepared for that level of turnover and change is really important, because we're going to have to hit the ground running on January 3rd of next year, when a new Congress is seated, and introducing ourselves and getting an almost entirely new Big Four up to speed on all of our various issues and their staff that they bring in, etc. So just a point of change that's coming that I wanted to flag. And then also I wanted to flag the historic level of retirements that are occurring. There are a lot of members of Congress who have announced that they are not going to come back. They're not running again. They're not going to come back. We've had several deaths this year as well. And we have had several folks have to step down for various ethical reasons. So in addition to the retirements, there's going to be even more matriculation through Congress than a typical election cycle. There's always a lot of retirements during an election cycle, but this year is really it is a really interesting one. So I point this out to you because from an education standpoint, there's going to be probably at least 100-ish new members of the House and Senate that agriculture is going to have to get to know. We may have varying relationships with. There's going to have to be a huge education and relationship building effort over the next 2 years as this Congress goes through a pretty significant change. And in that vein, I think there's some really exciting opportunities this year that agriculture that we're working to leverage that I hope all of you are thinking about how best to leverage as well. So the America 250 celebration, the America 250 committee is the committee that is working on all of the America 250 activations across the United States. And then there is a White House group that is working on all of the activations that are happening here in Washington, D.C. So we are working as Farm Credit to make sure that agriculture is a part of that 250. It's been a part of America since its inception, and we think it should be a front and center topic as we celebrate our 250th birthday. So we are participating in the People's Garden, which is a farming garden at USDA. So one of the things that we're doing is making sure that credit is a part of that conversation, but also ensuring that agriculture is a part of that conversation. There will be a agriculture component, Ag Day almost, as part of the Great American State Fair that's going to take place in the mall, on the National Mall. And then I know there's agriculture activations occurring in all 50 states as part of the various America 250 tours. So I encourage you, if there's a way to plug in to this hook and have, bring agriculture and what you're doing in the space and your unique businesses and business models and engagement as part of the America 250, it's a great way to highlight, to have an excuse to highlight agriculture. And then, of course, the International Year of the Woman Farmer. So we're really, really excited at Farm Credit to have the opportunity to both co-sponsor the ACE conference that Doris mentioned, but to do our own activation celebrating the International Year of the Woman Farmer. We've nominated and identified female agriculture leaders from all 59 Farm Credit institutions. We're bringing them together for a leadership training 3-day session that is focused on women in agriculture at Gettysburg, which we're really, really excited about. And then we will be collecting their stories and following them along on their journey through Gettysburg and their leadership training, and making sure that we're really highlighting all of the different women in agriculture that Farm Credit has a relationship with, and ensuring that we're really participating fully in this celebration. So we're really, really excited. I think it's going to be a fantastic, positive note to end the year on this year, and to bring these really incredible, important stories to Congress, because this is for all of us, an important storytelling opportunity. So with that, if I can encourage you to do one thing, tell your story. Like I said, there's going to be a ton of turnover in Washington. The one thing that is constant always, but especially in Washington, is change. There's always new people to meet, new people to engage with, whether it be members of Congress or their staff, your local community leaders, your mayors, your state representatives. If we are not telling them who we are, what we're doing, and how we are impacting our communities, then we're missing the groundwork that we have to lay in order to go ask for something when we need it. So we want to get ahead of whenever we, as a community and as an agriculture community, if we need additional funding, if we need additional support from any level of government, we have to have those relationships first. And those relationships come by folks like all of you telling your unique stories, because you are raising your families, supporting your communities, participating in your education infrastructure. And members of Congress don't always understand that. State representatives don't understand it. So I think leveraging your story and talking about what you're doing is so, so important. We have the unique ability in agriculture where we get to talk about an industry where what you are doing, people can taste and feel and experience and smell and see. And you want to bring that to life for folks, because they will remember something that they can taste and feel and is that tangible. So I encourage you to think about, how are you telling your story now? How are you engaged in your communities? And happy to talk more about that as we go into the Q&A. So I am going to throw up my email address. Feel free to take that down, chat with me, communicate with me. Let me know how I can be helpful to you. Find me on LinkedIn as well. But I'll stop sharing here, and we can move to questions.
Well, Jenny, I think you brought up something really important. Well, first of all, thank you for that update. Always great to hear from you. And boy, lots of moving parts and lots of changes ahead. But as I think sometimes some of our participants, some of the producers in particular out there, or even agriculturalists in general and people in general, feel sometimes that they don't have much pull or say. They go and vote for who they're going to vote for, but once people are elected, sometimes I think that we think that those advocates that are in DC, the lobbyists and so forth for the different interests, have all of the sway, and that we have no opportunity to influence unless we belong to a particular organization that's doing things, that we as individuals don't have any influence on the process. And I guess you've worked with a lot of producers who and have helped them share their stories, but how do you suggest to people that might never have contacted, their member of Congress or senator, or maybe their state representatives, how would you suggest that they approach that? And also, how do you interact with staff? Because we know that there's a lot of staff involved as well, and you might not always get to actually speak to your member of Congress or your senator.
Absolutely. So the staff are so important. They are the triage for members of Congress and their as well as state representatives, et cetera. So it is really important to treat the staff the same way that you would as your representatives. But level set, they're people, You're their voter, you're their constituent. It is their job to hear you and to uh, make sure that you have an avenue to communicate with, at the very least, their offices. So take advantage of that. Don't be afraid to reach out. It is, in my opinion, it's our job as citizens to talk about what's important to us, but it's also their job as elected officials to maybe not, certainly not always agree with you, but to hear and to provide a vehicle for listening. So my greatest asset as a lobbyist, so I'm a federal lobbyist, that's my job. My job is to represent the farm credit system before Congress and the administration. But how I do that is by bringing producer stories to those members of Congress and their staff. I have to bring agriculture in all its many forms and fashions. I mean, farm credit, we finance the biggest operations to the smallest operations, the most traditional operations from the most innovative operations, farmer veterans. I mean, the many different types of customers that we have is one of our greatest strengths. And I have to continuously educate members and their staff about all of the different folks that farm credit really represents. And I couldn't do that if our producers weren't willing to come with me to tell their story, or weren't able or weren't willing for me to say, hey, you want to know more about this specific thing? I have a person for you to call. And that's really, it's about developing that level of trust and that level of dialogue, stopping by a district office and introducing yourself to the staff there. If you hear that a member of Congress is looking for folks to serve on their agriculture roundtables, volunteer to do it. If they're hosting town halls, town halls don't, yes, they tend to be very vocal and boisterous these days. You don't have to be vocal and boisterous to go. You can go and listen and then catch the staff at the end and say, hey, this is what my farm operation is. This is what I do. If you've got a business card with a QR code, that's great. If you've got just like a one-page piece of information about your operation, invite the staff to come out. So make sure you're engaged with your local farm bureau or National Farmers Union, Annie's Project, etc. And as members of Congress are looking for things to do, particularly in August, because that's what they're looking to do, invite them to come visit your operation and give them a tour. And while you're doing it, make sure that they know that you've got a social media presence and you intend to share that information on social media as well, and to really celebrate the fact that the member or the staff came out and met with you and saw what you did firsthand. So those are just some of the ways that that you can engage. So I saw someone just put in the chat that their representative refuses to hold town halls. It's a very weird, it's a little bit of a weird political environment. And as I can understand in some ways why can be, safety is kind of all over the place, and members of Congress are really district by district deciding what makes sense for them as engaging with their constituents is concerned. Typically they'll do something called Congress on Your Corner. So it's not a town hall, but it's like constituents can come in and meet with the member or meet with the staff. So that's one way to get around it. There are some members that have like a traveling RV, and they do office hours in the RV in some of the more rural districts. So I encourage you, go on their websites, figure out how they're meeting with constituents, all the different ways that they're asking people to communicate with them. Call the office and ask who covers your agriculture issues for you, and see if you can start a relationship with that person. Once you have that relationship established and you have a little bit of a dialogue, the real goal is to get that staff member or that member of Congress, when they don't know something, when they're looking for answers, they call you. They pick up the phone and they say they feel comfortable enough with you that they can say, I don't know this answer, or I don't understand this policy. Can you talk to me about what it does and how it would impact your farm? That's the ultimate goal. That's the question you want to get. That's the relationship you're trying to establish, is that trusting relationship so that somebody can open up and say, I don't know. And then you get to fill the space.
I think that's, really good advice. I know I had emailed my congressperson. This was many years ago, but then the ag aide started contacting me about things and actually called me, strangely enough, over Labor Day weekend. He was concerned about something, and I thought that was, wow, you're working, during a big holiday period. So I must have struck a nerve in some way, shape, or form on that particular issue that I had been writing to them about. But they will respond, or a good person will respond. I can't speak for everybody that's out there. Um, I wanted to go back to something you had mentioned, and I know Annie's project works to educate people. That is our focus on risk management and farm business management. And one of the things that we have worked a lot on is crop insurance education. And you mentioned changes in specialty crop insurance and then also maybe some income limitations. Do you have some more details on that? I think, a lot of our participants are interested in, how their risk management tools might be impacted by legislation.
Sure. So I'm not a crop insurance expert. My biggest job is to protect all of the good advancements that we've achieved in conjunction with the crop insurance community. So what I am looking for, particularly in the next step in this process, is to make sure amendments that would harm the crop insurance program, so either reduce the level of funding, would, like you said, put on AGI limitations or other types of limitations, tie certain practices to your ability to get crop insurance. All of those things, anything that takes away the flexibility of the producer to access the only risk management tool available to them, we want to prevent from getting adopted, and we want to defeat it. So I'll be going through all of those amendments, and if the amendment is made in order, it's my job, along with the rest of the agriculture community, and we will coordinate with the rest of the community to ensure that members of Congress know this is a bad idea and they should oppose it. And then in addition, I know, so there is and I can tell you which title it is in 1 second. I'm saying it's Title 11. So there is a crop insurance title in the Farm Bill. And some of the, it is Title 11, yes. So there is a Title 11. If you go to the House Agriculture Committee website, there is a great sort of, there's a Farm Bill page. So you use the drop-down box under issues, click Farm Bill, and it has all of the different resources as to what's in there. And there are a whole section, a whole one pager of what the updates are in this bill that were not included in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that they are trying to clean up. And there's some research and development of new crop insurance programs that are in there, like how making sure that more types of products are covered. There is some additional things on whole farm revenue to continue to get that program, whole farm crop insurance, get that program more user-friendly for producers. There's different parts of the country find it more user-friendly than others. Different AIPs will take on more than others, so trying to work through those issues. And then there's some real niche things like wine grape losses because of fire and creating policies for that. So there's some really good, important updates. If not knowing, there's something for mushrooms, something for wine grapes. So I encourage you to dig in there and kind of find out what it is that you're specifically interested in based on your operation, and then find out what the update might be.
Thank you. So you, being that credit is your area of expertise. Can you help us understand a little bit more about what some of the changes are looking like they might be as we move forward with what's currently being included by the House?
Yeah, absolutely. So the credit title, I was have been working on for a very long time now. And we're really excited about some of the changes and updates. Some of them are specific to farm credit. Some of them are good for all lenders. So as I mentioned, one of the big ones that we've been looking for since the 2018 Farm Bill is modernizing the loan limit size for USDA guaranteed and direct loans, both operating and farm ownership. So the new language would increase guaranteed loan levels to 3.5 for farm ownership and 3.5 million for farm ownership and 3 million for operating. And we really think, particularly for specialty crop producers and other high value producers, it's difficult to get into business these days for what the old loan limits were. And as Farm Credit is working with young beginning producers, and we're trying to put together packages that include maybe a little bit of a guaranteed loan, maybe a little bit of a direct loan, maybe a little bit of, private financing. You need lots of flexibility in those caps without, just saying, oh, this is for the biggest of the big. Because that's not what we're trying to accomplish here. We're trying to make sure if you're in 10 acres of strawberries, your operating cost is $1 million. So how do you right size USDA products to that new reality? And with input costs just continuing to go up, having that flexibility in those loan programs to be modernized to deal with the input costs that most likely won't come down very much. There's also, so I mentioned taking that beginning farmer experience for the beginning farmer programs from 3 years to 2 years. And then one of those years can be some sort of off-farm business experience, et cetera. It also gives discretion to the secretary to be even more flexible with that, which I think is really, really important. It's hard to get into farming as it is. Even harder if you are trying to get into it, but you need 3 years of experience to get into it, but you can't find financing because you don't have 3 years of experience. I mean, it's sort of like a chicken and egg conversation. So we're really excited about that one. We're really excited to be able to, there's language in there that would allow Farm Credit to finance what is called a community facility. So how can Farm Credit leverage our expertise in rural communities to help those communities a little bit more, and allowing us to finance things like, so nonprofit critical access hospitals, community health centers, fire stations, police stations in rural communities. We think is a really important way that Farm Credit can do just a little bit more to ensure the services and the infrastructures that support our customers continue to be able to exist. Childcare is in there as well, so that's exciting. And then finally, FSA loan programs, USDA loan programs, and USDA lending haven't really been updated since the 60s. So the way that we structure our farms today is so different than the way we would have structured a farm in the 1960s. So we need to modernize the types of farm structures that are eligible to apply for all of these different programs at USDA. So we've worked really hard to help USDA understand and work with us to create Farm Bill language that would recognize these modern farm structures and the LLCs and the other types of ways that families are structuring in particular, so that the kids that want to actively farm are able to do that, but that the farm is still owned by the entirety of the family.
Lots happening. Just want to invite people again to write any questions or put your comments in the chat if you have questions or comments. Happy to field those before we're getting close to closing out time, but just want to make sure that those questions get answered.
Yeah, so many of you hung on for this whole thing.
Yes. So, Jenny, I'm going to ask you the question here then is part of our wrap up. looking in your crystal ball, which may be a little foggy, but you said we don't have much time to get things done. When you look at the fact that Congress will be in recess in August and that people will be out campaigning on October, what is your best, based on your past experience and what you see going on now, what do you see as the potential here for the uh, getting a farm bill passed, or are we going to end up doing the piecemeal and having the chaos of hundreds of pieces of legislation? What's your best estimate at this time based on what you're understanding now?
I will always be optimistic. I will always believe that there is a will to get something done. And I think that there is a real unique opportunity right now to put this farm bill to bed, to repair the relationships that have been fractured because of this particular process, and to, as a community, as all of the agriculture community, even, from production agriculture to nutrition, can figure out a way of, like, how do we prevent this from happening again? How do we put our coalition back together, get the congressional support, start that education process now, so that in 5 years we're better positioned to not face the same challenges. Farm bills will always, always be challenging. It seems like a very natural coalition that's been built over the years, but in many ways the priorities are not always, they're not aligned with each other. So threading that needle has been a real unique effort that the agriculture committees have taken on, and frankly the agriculture community has taken on. And we need to be able to get back to that. And I think members of Congress understand the need to put this to bed and be able to move on and to rebuild the coalition. So I am optimistic that we can do it. But you've got to tell your story.
Yes. Well, we really appreciate you taking time out of an incredibly busy schedule to share your knowledge and expertise with us today, Jenny. Hopefully, it won't be another year before we see you. Maybe after the Farm Bill gets passed, you can maybe give us a breakdown of what ended up happening and help us understand, because I know part of it is understanding it before it happens, but then once it passes, what does all of this mean to us in reality here, and how is our things going to play out? So we'll be looking forward to hopefully visiting with you again before April 23rd of 2027.
Absolutely. Annie's project has been such an incredible partner for Farm Credit. We're so proud to have the opportunity to partner with your organization, and so proud to have been partners for as long as we have been, and look forward to continuing the relationship, and always, always happy to join y'all.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending, and hope to see you on our next session.